so excited to be here today. I think that most of us in this room all know Filecoin, which we think of as one of the OG DePIN projects. And I'm really excited to see all the ways that DePIN has started to become a real buzzword, a real part of our infrastructure. And so I would love to start off with each one of our amazing panelists today introducing themselves and introducing their project.
Hi, I'm Clemens. I'm with DIN, and DIN is the Decentralized Infrastructure Network. It's an open marketplace for APIs and connecting between different RPC providers. And we're looking to connect between providers so that in kind of the decentralized space, that the centralized providers don't get too overburdened. And we want to actually make more decentralized providers to have a sustainable business so they can use their spare bare metal code to actually get access to more networks.
I am Simone Romano, leading developer relations at IoTeX. And at IoTeX, we have been working since 2018 into connecting the blockchain with the physical world. And we are on this journey to facilitate the life to DePIN projects to actually decentralize their infrastructure. And we're providing multiple layers of infrastructure to allow DePIN projects to actually achieve full decentralization.
Hi, Megan. Thank you. I'm Paksy. I'm the chief strategist at Staex. It's a Berlin-based company. We are allowing Web2 companies accessing Web3 tools. So we build public-private consortiums, and I can share a little bit more later about how we do this in realizing real-world assets, DePIN, actually monetizing, utilities, predominantly utility providers. Thanks.
Hi everyone, I'm Ranvir. I'm the co-founder of WitnessChain. WitnessChain builds a consensus layer on physical state. What this means is we bring trust into decentralized infrastructure. This trust is powered by our Watchtower network, which sits on top of EigenLayer, providing cryptoeconomic security to all DePINs and builders that partner with us.
Amazing. So my first question for all of you guys is I'm curious, what do you think are the most pressing issues with our global data infrastructure today? And why do you think that we have this pressing need for democratization or to move into decentralized physical infrastructure networks?
Who is starting? I'm going to start? Okay.
Go for it. Yeah.
Go for it. Well, I guess the answer is pretty obvious, right? We have seen the blockchain technology to achieve great success in the last years, and the natural result of all of this must be the using this blockchain technology in the real world, right? Otherwise, why do we build technology? And so I guess it's the most natural implementation of blockchain in the real life is as the incentive layer for decentralizing physical infrastructures, because physical infrastructure are those types of use cases where you need reliability, where you need democracy, right? You need there should be available for everyone and should be resilient and should be censorship resistant. So I guess we are going to go through the typical use cases that will make this even more obvious, right? So I guess it's just the obvious mass adoption case for blockchain, right?
Yeah, and I would add to that we want to make Web3 costs go down, right? If you look at AI costs, those are coming down as well. And so for the developers, for the engineers that are looking after all the different network protocols, those are expensive people that need to be compensated, but also we have to work with them closely to make sure that that expertise is shared by most of the providers that want access to all these different networks that are being created.
Paksy, Ranvir?
Yeah, so it's no secret, right? The world is stuck. I mean, we're all stuck. Corporations are stuck, individuals are stuck, and somehow this whole data layer that you mentioned, we don't have access to data, not even our own data, right? We don't use and share and build upon each other's data. I work in Europe now, and it is no big secret that one company on the 6th floor needs to have a USB stick, put the data on it, takes the elevator, and gives it to the floor manager, right? That still happens. And so as long as we're doing this, they're not going to go trust and share and cooperate with other entities outside of the company even. So Web3 is absolutely necessary, right? But how can we make it in a way that we build this ecosystem that doesn't just consist of the developers and some guys with money that throw some money at the developers, right? It has to be a rich ecosystem. And for the companies that want to come along and want to play and share, right, there needs to be a space. So this is our mission. We have to learn to partner up, make data accessible, and everybody is talking about AI in every meeting, but you have no even your own data. How are you going to run AI? So that, to me, is that a big mystery.
Yeah.
So if you look at physical infrastructure networks, by their nature, they are decentralized, right? They have to exist throughout the globe or throughout a country. Now, because of this decentralization, how currently it's being developed is through centralized economics. And it's decentralized, and it's using centralized economics. So it's very expensive to deploy. And that's why you see major players being either governments or monopolies, I would like to call dinosaurs, right? Now, DePINs provide a way to completely change the economics in which infrastructure networks develop by pushing capital to the edge. And that enables not only cost reduction, it enables new type of infrastructure that was previously not economically viable to be set up. And that's, I think, is the fundamental allure of DePINs, and that's what we like to expand on.
I'm curious if there are specific industries that each of you think are especially ready for DePIN or like the right place to kind of roll out this technology. Maybe start with you, Ranvir.
Yeah, so because of our, I would like to say that any infrastructure which has heavy deployment in the edge, so think of something like your cellular networks, connectivity, edge compute, CDNs, energy, and so on. All of these verticals are significant cost improvement on top of existing centralized infrastructure networks. As witness chain, what we are building is a shared trust layer amongst all such DePINs. So we focus on all of the verticals that we mentioned and even more. I would say data collection is one of them because data is on the edge as well.
Yeah.
So
Paksy?
Megan, we work with utilities that have critical infrastructures. They need the help the most. Think of one of our customers, for example, is a public company. They own 84,000 telco towers across Europe. Cost is going up, right? The real estate that they own doesn't make money. So they need ways to not just cost reduction, but delayering their assets and actually start monetizing some of their real world digital and physical assets. So that's an example of a company that we work with.
So yeah, typical use cases for DePIN are, as I said, pretty obvious, but for those who are maybe not very familiar, I would summarize that those infrastructures that that have like a high barrier for entry in terms of investment, and those infrastructures that benefit, that are like in their nature widespread, that they benefit of network incentives to grow, right? Even at the in terms of geofence, right, at the world scale. These types of infrastructures are the perfect fit for DePIN, for blockchain incentives. Obvious use cases are, of course, telecommunications, right, or energy infrastructures, but also data collection infrastructures. Like all these types of use cases are already emerging now. There are some very popular examples like Helium in the 5G connectivity, or even Demo we have just heard into like driving behavior data collection, and I've heard of PowerPod that's working with IoTeX on the energy infrastructure. So I think these are the obvious suspects, right? But I'm sure, I mean, once these obvious use cases will bootstrap, there will be many more actually new types of infrastructures that can be built with DePIN. Thinking of autonomous vehicles, drones, I'm sure there will be some amazing use cases.
Yeah, I agree. There are a lot of consumer use cases, but we're also looking very closely at the business models for existing providers because we don't want the hundreds of providers not having the ability to offset some of those bare metal costs, especially if they're building some other use cases. And so I think it's really diving deep into what the economics look like for each of our providers and figuring out how, if we're, Consensys builds MetaMask, builds Infura. Infura further decentralizing provides more access to more networks to all of the users of MetaMask.
Well, I'm curious also, so we're just talking about what are the best use cases for DePIN. What about areas, like what parts of the world do you think are most, ready to have like a DePIN revolution, to have people move to decentralized infrastructure? Let's start with Clemens.
This is kind of an interesting one. I'm not trying to shill WorldCoin or anything, but I like the original idea of banking the unbanked and being able to provide people with access to rewards. So the idea of having identification, but then also using those rewards that may make a bigger difference in kind of the places that are less accessible. If you have a phone, you would be able to have a wallet, and that wallet provides the identity.
Yeah, from my experience, we are in infrastructure like builders, so we deal with all different types of DePIN projects that reach out to us and trying to understand how to deploy and what to build. And in my experience, I think developer countries have a great possibility here with DePIN. We're seeing a lot of interest into energy projects and into the sharing economy. For example, we have a lot of contacts from Indian companies or even governments who are interested into how to build these infrastructures that are blockchain powered. So developing countries, I think, have a huge potential here. But, well, that's a potential for any country in general.
It's really funny, developing countries, right? In this case, they're not developing.
Yeah.
They're ahead of us. Africa,
Yeah.
agriculture,
Yeah.
right? Off-chain, measuring temperature for crops, etc., for insurance. We see a lot in Asia, obviously. So Australia. So there's many examples with drone, as mentioned before, in a lot of continents outside of Europe. But we're getting there.
As far as geographical distribution is concerned, DePINs make sense where for emerging technologies. Now, emerging technologies is different for different countries. As you said, some things are adopted in some countries and some are not, right? So, like, for a developed country, emerging technologies can be maybe something like millimeter 5G, or in some sense, I would also call pure renewable reliance as also an emerging technology because it's not fully adopted yet. Whereas if we look at developing countries, those emerging technologies would look slightly different. It can be even raw energy or even basic home connectivity that would be missing. So wherever it's emerging in whatever geographical area, that vertical makes sense in that country.
I would love actually to circle back, Paksy, on what you were saying. And you've spent your whole career working in emerging technologies and emerging, emerging places. And I would love to hear how you feel like DePIN works into this longer narrative that you have in your career.
So interesting. So I've been in tech a long time. We were on the forefront. I was with a company that pioneered the wireless application protocol. So this guy's before iPhone, right? How to surf the internet. And so I see a lot of the mobile internet coming back here again with Web3 technology. So I truly believe this is absolutely necessary that you include corporations in the mix and also rules like, regulations. I know nobody want to broker this topic. Governments actually will benefit the most from DePIN, from Web3 tech and technology. So in Berlin, where we are based, we actually have been working with the state, Berlin state, and local organizations, governmental organizations. It's not easy, but it needs to happen. If you want a vibrant ecosystem, and this needs to be mass adopted, you need to think beyond just retail, like individuals. So I urge everybody to, talk to your local, whatever it is, government.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um, Ranvir, do you mind talking a little bit about interoperability and all the many ways that Witness Chain and your previous career have made you especially keyed up to make a world of interoperability and why democratization of information is so important?
Definitely. So,
Yeah.
since I entered into blockchains, the biggest allure of blockchains is coordination. Somebody can develop an app and you can build something else on top of it without any interaction between those two teams, right? And this is fascinating because it allows for a very organic growth and a huge reduction in friction while developing any application. Now, I did my PhD in Consensys, like solving the blockchain trilemma, right? And working so much in the problem of consensus on a digital state, what I realized is if you want to enable coordination or interoperability in the physical world, you need to solve the problem of consensus, but on physical state. Physical state being where is your infrastructure asset located? What's its resource capacity? Resource can be bandwidth, compute, storage, and so on. Now, achieving consensus on that creates kind of a trust broker that allows multiple DePINs to coordinate with one another. Say you want to build an AI pipeline where that involves coordination across, compute, storage, data collection, which is your sensors, connectivity, all of these kind of sets of infrastructure that can interoperate if there is a trust system between that. And that's how we built Witness Chain. In Witness Chain, what we do is we run these protocols that do something like proof of location that enable a global validator set to agree on the location attribute of that asset. Similarly, there are many other proofs that we incorporate within our coordination layer, and that's how multiple DePINs can interoperate with one another. One thing I would also like to highlight is this also enables application builders to build application on top of DePINs. You can think of DePINs as kind of like commodity generators for different types of commodities, be it energy, compute, bandwidth, and so on. And you can build applications on top of that commodity.
Amazing. Okay, next I'm going to call on you, Simone. Call everybody out individually. I would love to hear your thoughts about building and contributing to DePIN networks, and especially what you have been able to achieve with incentivizing developers to come into this world.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. The DePIN space, I work in developer relations, so I feel really lucky of working at IoTeX because being an infrastructure, we have the ability to see all the possible use cases and talk to these developers. They have really amazing ideas, and it's very easy for me and for our team to inspire and think of these use cases. And we even had a live stream how to build an end-to-end bike sharing application as a DePIN type of utility. Honestly, it's one of the most inspiring spaces to work in as a developer. It's one layer more interesting than Web3 itself because it's real utility for blockchain, right? Maybe if I want to spend one word in general on this thing, and I want to be the bad guy here, and I want to see something provocative here and say, in reality, how many of these DePIN projects are really decentralized, right? Because the D in DePIN, right, it stands for decentralized, but they are decentralized in the physical world, right? As also you mentioned before. They are decentralized in the physical world because anyone owns a piece of this infrastructure. And they have this token economy that's decentralized. So the token economy incentives are unstoppable. Once the incentive has been sent, right, you're going to get it. It's censorship resistant. It's blockchain based. But what about the DePIN? The actual DePIN, right? We've been talking about proving, coordinating the proof of physical work or the data, where this data is, right?
Right.
Let's not mention privacy, let's not mention other things, but the computation, how are these rewards, incentives being computed? Who knows, right? The thing is, The thing is
I
that
like just like, who knows? Whatever.
yeah, who knows? That's the truth. I mean, I don't want
The
to.
compute's happening somewhere.
Yeah, I don't want to do bad mouth. I mean, to any DePIN project here. Actually, instead, it's a call to action here for you guys to take the lead and start decentralizing, really decentralizing these projects. And if you want to decentralize a DePIN project, you need a whole infrastructure that's not only blockchain. It's all about, if you have heard the demo, right? Issues about how you design your hardware to make it identifiable and trusted, how you design the data to make it tamper-proof, how you design the processing of this data to make it verifiable for not only on-chain, but by everyone. And how do you make this data available to everyone? How you preserve privacy, right? All these things today are just implemented, honestly, centralized. But that's okay. That's okay. I mean, that's the early projects, right? So I think we should not forget that this DePIN project should really be decentralized. So that's a call to action to look into DePIN infrastructure a little bit more. It's not only a token, right?
Do you have any advice about how these projects who are, I would say also maybe decentralize your base data and use Filecoin as a...
Filecoin is a great example for the long-term data availability, right?
Absolutely.
Then there are, I mean, all these like projects we have seen today. By the way, thank you, Fluence, for hosting this great event.
Yeah.
And
thank you, Fluence.
yeah, all these like architectures, like Fluence itself for cloudless computation, Filecoin for storage, and I don't know, sequencers or data availability, right? All these are components that are needed by a DePIN application. But you need a consistent architecture to connect and compose everything together, right? It's hard. It's still hard. Even with all this great technology outside, it's still very hard to build a DePIN project. You need hardware capable skills, right? And you need IoT skills. And then you have to understand the data availability, you have to understand the sequencing, the ZK, the computation, and then the Web3 side. Right? That's maybe the easiest part. And so it's not enough. It's great that all these components are available. You still have to make them work together, not mentioning identity problems, right? So yeah, I mean, that's what we are doing. And really, I wish to see more DePIN projects to take the lead here and start thinking how they want to get decentralized.
I think that's a great place to start. Okay.
Related to that, so
Great.
I believe in, I'm more of a degen, but I believe in kind of the self-sovereign access and kind of control of data. And I think, and maybe this is too far off into the AI world, but large language models into smaller language models that are on your trusted compute device. So Apple Intelligence talked about having kind of mobile-based or small language models that changes the way that you would interact with your applications, right? So having your AI agent being localized, learning your own data. And
For what it's worth, I don't think that we can have a panel in, whatever
Not bring up
summer
AI.
of 2024 and not bring up AI. So
Yeah, but on the self-sovereign front, I think just understanding the data you create and being able to organize it and be able to consider what's sent to a SaaS platform versus stored locally versus stored on the car itself, right? There's a lot of those use cases that I keep on considering. Like if I'm doing my taxes for crypto, then I should probably use some open source, verifiable, locally installed on Linux, like that type of platform. So there's also some self-responsibility in how you want to be, how your data can be ingested and how your data can be used.
And how do you feel about that right now? Like, do you feel like that's something that's readily available to you, or do you feel like that's something that's still, we're in the rough and dirty section of being able to try to prepare our taxes in a way that has a decentralized component?
I think the hardest part is the digital legacy part, because our generation will get older and think about how to pass on different parts of your digital identity online, your different bank accounts, and how to create a trust around that. And so the thoughts around decentralizing that access, but also transferring it elegantly, has not been fully built. I mean, I think we eventually want to live, kind of like in the Silicon Valley world. What does it look like when we all retire? Is it going to be a gaming convention of some sort? But I think a lot about that. And I think the tools are getting there, but are we responsible enough? And can I trust other people to be responsible enough? And that's more of a user experience. So how do you build something that's easy and you're not by accident giving away your private keys or secret key phrases, all those things.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm curious if anybody else on the panel has thoughts about, specifically this era that we're living in 2024, and everyone looking at AI and what the DePIN implications are for this next era of AI.
I am very excited, and I believe you need to have, it's not an or, it's an and. Like you have private networks now, we need to make it work for corporations, individuals that want to jump on board now. I know people don't want to hear this, but I do like the term Web 2.5. Because realistically, I can't get corporations to jump in Web3 without having this phase that allows us to, build upon what we have today. So I think decentralization, that's just really a hard nut to crack. I agree with you, but I believe baby steps.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So no, I'm very bullish on AI agents. I can't wait until we have robots and AI agents. But how do we do this in a trusted, reliable, secure way?
I'm curious what gives you guys confidence that open source and democratized infrastructure will actually survive big tech? Like, what gives you guys confidence this is actually going to work?
Yeah, I can
Oh
start.
God, too much silence. Okay, I'm sorry. I should have primed you for this.
I can start this one.
We're all very confident for what it's worth, everybody.
Yeah, well, my hope, I would say, is that, yeah, you mentioned open source, right? So I think it's a great example. Open source initially, 30 years ago, I think, was seen like something really weird and suspect. And is it going to work? Is it going to kill big companies? Eventually, it ended up that they had to use it, right? I think that's the hope, right? The hope is that eventually these big companies will not fight decentralization, rather they will become actors, right? They will join them. And eventually we realize that if they want to survive, they have to join the decentralization. Yeah.
So basically, you're saying just be better, and therefore they'll have to
But that's why it won't happen unless we have a robust ecosystem now.
Totally, yeah.
Right?
But
they have to be forced there. I don't see the big three or the big five doing this now willingly.
No, they will never start it.
Right?
They will never
So
start it.
this is why if we're robust enough, then
Yeah.
they have no choice.
Yeah, we have to start the alternative competition for them to have to make the choice if they don't want to die, right?
Yeah, again, believing in the self-sovereign creation of data, I think after read, write, own, there will be a training phase, right? This is where you understand that the data that's created and you train your AI agent to communicate with other AI agents hosted by enterprises. And so that interaction to me changes economies quite a bit. Less about DePIN, more like putting a tinfoil hat on, just thinking about how SaaS companies changed because you would just linguistically ask for certain things and be able to connect multiple APIs together from the backend side.
But I do feel this is related, though. Without DePIN, AI is not going to be flourishing. Compute, and then also like cost and data security, privacy.
Yeah. And I also think the excitement over AI gives the opportunity to sort of switch to more decentralized structures, because anytime you have that kind of like market, market impact, right? Like anytime you have like a bottleneck, it sort of gives you the opportunity to move on to the thing that is like maybe morally better.
What do you think that would be completely driven by like moral and the philosophy of decentralization, or do you think because that doesn't scale as we have seen, right? I mean, there are a lot more people who are not into crypto than who are into crypto, right? So I think you have to provide fundamental structural advantage to compared to centralized companies, and maybe edge data incentivizes edge compute, and maybe for that we actually have a system where decentralization is better, decentralized infrastructure is a better replacement than AWS or centralized versions.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I totally agree with that. Like, you have to make a product that's better and incentives that are better. You can't rely on the underpinning moral values, though maybe I'm belaying my own reasons for being in the industry. Great. Well, this was really lovely. Thank you guys all so much for being here. I really appreciated getting to talk to all of you. And any final statements you want to say before we get off the stage?
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks,
Absolutely.
Fluence. Thanks, Megan.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you all. I mean,
Thanks, Fluence.
let's do it together. So if we could continue this, then it would be great.